Hello and welcome back to Mrs. Torres' YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about the last 3 ways that we're going to use to prove triangles are congruent. So yesterday we talked about side, 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 and side, angle, side. Those are A and B on this paper. Today we're going to talk about 3 more. So the first one that we're going to talk about today is called angle, side, angle, which we abbreviate ASA. If 2 angles and an included side. So remember, for side, angle, side, the angle needs to be included. For angle, side, angle, the side has to be included. So if 2 angles and an included side of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another, then the triangles are congruent. So let's take a look at our picture here. So we have congruent angles, and then the side that's included. So this would be angle, side, angle. Angle, side, angle. All right, so let's take a look at these. Which pairs of triangles are congruent by the angle, side, angle property? Well, let's take a look. So number 1, we have a pair of angles, we have a pair of sides, and we have another pair of angles. Is the angle included, is the side included in the angles? Yes, it is. So that one we can prove is congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So we have a pair of congruent angles, another pair of congruent angles, and then a congruent side. So we have all the elements there, but is the side included in the angles? No, it is not. If it was, it would need to be this side and this side, so we cannot prove these congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, number 3, we've got congruent angle, congruent side. Is the side included? It sure is. It's right in the middle there. So we can prove those congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, number 4, let's take a look. We've got congruent angles, because right angles are all congruent. And then we have congruent sides, another pair of congruent angles. So here, the side is included, but take a look. Here, the side is not included. So those are not corresponding sides. It would need to be here. So this one we cannot prove congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, take a look at number 5. So number 5, again, we have right angles. All right angles are congruent. And then they share this side. And then up here we have congruent angles. So is our shared side included in the angles? It sure is. So that one we could prove congruent by angle, side, angle. And our last one, let's see, we've got angle, we've got a side, we've got an angle. Here my angle is included, but check it out. Here it is not. It would need to be on that side to be included, so that we cannot prove congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, next one, we've got angle, angle, side. So here you're again going to have 2 angles and 1 side, but the placement's going to be a little different. So we abbreviate this one AAS. If 2 angles and the non-included side of one triangle are congruent to corresponding parts of another triangle, the triangles are congruent. So take a look. We've got congruent angles, and then a side. Now be very careful that this side is the same corresponding side. So you see how the congruent side is next to the angle that has 2 arches? That works. If this triangle had this here and then it was talking about the other side there, that would not work. So the corresponding sides have to be congruent. Well, let's take a look at what I mean. So, number 1, are these congruent by angle, angle, side? So we've got angle, angle, side. angle, angle, side. So notice this congruent side is included in my two angles, or my two sides, sorry. No. I was right the first time, it's two angles. This side is not included in the two angles. So in order for these to be congruent by angle, angle, side, we would need that tick mark there. So these are not congruent using angle, angle, side, because this one would be angle, side, angle, and this one is angle, angle, side. This also, we could say side, angle, angle, but most of the time you'll see it as angle, angle, side. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So that one doesn't work. All right, here we've got congruent angle, and then the congruent side. So notice how these are corresponding sides and they are congruent. So that one we could prove congruent by angle, angle, side. All right, number 3, let's take a look at it. We've got congruent angles, and then the corresponding side. So angle, angle, side, these are congruent using angle, angle, side. Let's take a look at number 4. We've got congruent angles. We have 90-degree angles, which means those are congruent. And then they share this side. Remember, shared sides do count towards congruent sides. So we have angle, angle, side. So this one is congruent by angle, angle, side. Number 5, we've got vertical angles. And we have another pair of congruent angles. And then we have a side. So we have angle, angle, side. So this is congruent by angle, angle, side. Lastly, we've got angle, and we've got angle, and we've got a side. Now, a lot of us would say yes, because we have angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. But notice the side here is next to the angle with one arch, but here the angle is next to, or the side is next to the angle with 2 arches. So because these sides are not corresponding, this one does not work. This tick mark would need to be here, or this tick mark would need to be here for this to work for angle, angle, side. So this one is a little trickier. You have to make sure that your angles and corresponding sides are lining up for your triangles to be congruent. All right, and the last one that I want to talk about, so flip it on over. It is called the hypotenuse leg theorem. So before we talk about hypotenuse leg, we've got side, side, side. We have side, angle, side. We have angle, angle, side. What other one did we talk about today? Oh, angle, side, angle. Right, so we have 4 ways that we can prove. Let's talk about the duds. The theorems that will not work. Ways that we cannot prove triangles are congruent. So we already talked about angle, angle, angle. So that does not work. You can't prove triangles are congruent if all 3 angles are congruent. Another one that does not work is side, side, angle. So side, side, angle does not work. I know, if you spell it the other way, it says ass. But let's not talk about that. So side, side, angle, unless you have a right angle. So let's see what I mean. Hypotenuse leg theorem says, if the hypotenuse and a leg of one right angle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another triangle, the triangles are congruent. So side, side, angle does not work unless you have a right triangle. Because of course, that's the only way you have a hypotenuse, right? Right triangles, hypotenuses, those go hand in hand. So let's take a look at what I mean. So letter A, we see a right angle. So right away we're thinking, okay, maybe we could use hypotenuse leg. So here we're being told the hypoteni are congruent, and we're being told that this leg on the left is congruent. So we can say congruent by hypotenuse leg. We would not say by side angle, we would say by hypotenuse leg. All right, letter B, we have our right angle, and then we have legs are congruent, so we cannot say that this is congruent by hypotenuse leg. So not by hypotenuse leg. However, we have all these other theorems, right? So think about, are there any other congruence theorems that we could use to prove these are congruent? Excuse me. We could say by side angle side, these are congruent. So we can't use hypotenuse leg there. That's what we're thinking about for these 6, but we know all these other ones, so these are congruent by side angle side. All right, what about letter C? We've got a right angle, which means we have right triangles. We have hypotenuse equal. We have leg equal. So those are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Letter D, we've got right angles. They share a leg, which of course means they're congruent. Hypotenuse are equal. So that is congruent using hypotenuse leg. And letter E, let's see, we've got a right angle. Cool, so we've got right triangles. We have hypotenuse are equal. We have leg are equal. So by hypotenuse leg, those are congruent triangles. And lastly, we've got a rectangle here. So these are right angles. So they share the hypotenuse in this example. So hypotenuse, and those legs are congruent. So these triangles are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Now that we know all the options, let's see if we can identify if these triangles can be proven by one of the 5 properties that you have. So our options are side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle, and hypotenuse leg. Now, there might be some here that we can't use any of those. For those, we're just going to write none. So go ahead and pause the video, do all of these, and then when you're done with this, come back to the video and I will give you the answers. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at these. So, letter A, we have a right angle. So right away, we're thinking hypotenuse leg. But check out the hypotenuse. Those are not equal, so we're going to have to use something else. Maybe. So let's see. Excuse me. We have a right angle. We have a pair of equal sides. And we have another pair of equal sides. Now, this angle is included in the 2 sides. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Side, angle, side. So these are congruent by side, angle, side. Even though it's a right angle, we are going to use side, angle, side because we don't know anything about the hypotenuse. All right, letter B. We've got pair of congruent sides, pair of congruent sides, pair of congruent sides. All right, side, side, side. Looking good. Letter C, we have pair of congruent sides, angle, and then on this one, our angle is included in our congruent sides. Here, it is not included. So this one is going to be a none. We can't prove those are congruent. If those 2 tick marks were on that side instead, we could, but they're not, so we can't use any. Letter D, we see the right angle, so we're thinking hypotenuse leg. Let's see. Okay, hypotenuse are equal. they share the leg. So by hypotenuse leg, we can say those are congruent. All right, letter E. We've got congruent sides. We've got congruent angles, and then they share a side. Notice the angle is included in the congruent sides. So we can prove these are congruent by side, angle, side. Letter F. We've got vertical angles, which we know are congruent. We have another pair of congruent angles, and then we have a side. Notice the side is in the same spot, right? We have angle, angle, side. So we can prove these are congruent by angle, angle, side. All right, letter G. We've got congruent angles and then congruent angles. Here we have one arc, two arcs, and then the side. Here we have two arcs, one arc, and then the side. So this tick mark would need to be here if we used angle, angle, side, but because it's not, we cannot prove these triangles are congruent. All right, next one, we share a side, so that counts as one congruent side. Then we have, excuse me, we have congruent angles, and then we have another pair of congruent sides, so we can prove these are congruent by side, angle, side. All right, letter I. We have congruent sides, okay. Then we have congruent angles, and then we're like, we don't know anything else. But we cannot forget vertical angles are congruent. So check that out. We've got angle, angle, side, and same order here. Angle, angle, side. So we can prove this by angle, angle, side. All right, next one. We've got congruent sides, congruent sides, congruent angles. So we're thinking side, side, angle. But, oops, that one is a dud. So this one is going to be none. We cannot prove those are congruent by side, side, angle. Does not work. All right, last row here. K, we've got a right angle, so we're thinking maybe it's hypotenuse leg. All right, they share a leg, but we don't know anything about the hypotenuse. All right, back to the drawing board. So we've got a side, angle, angle. Is that an option? Absolutely it is. We can prove these by angle, angle, side, or side, angle, angle. Whichever way you write it is fine. This is how you will see it written most of the time. All right, letter I. So we have the top and bottom angles are congruent, and then we have these side angles are congruent, and then they share a side. So these are congruent by angle, angle, side. So this one's again angle, angle, side. Letter M, we see the right angle. We're thinking, okay, maybe this is hypotenuse leg. Let's see. They share the hypotenuse. Legs are congruent, so those are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Letter N. All right, we see the right angle. We're thinking maybe it's hypotenuse leg. We don't know anything about hypotenuse. Back to the drawing board. All right, so we've got congruent angles there. We've got congruent angles here. And then the included side is the side that they share. So these are congruent by angle, side, angle. And last one, letter O. They share a side, so that counts as congruent sides. These sides are congruent. Those sides are congruent, so these are congruent by side, side, side. All right, so those are all the ways that we are going to learn to prove triangles are congruent, which means we're going to practice this, have a quiz on it, and then starting next week, we are going to start officially writing proofs. All right, see you in my next video.